Welcome to the Embrace Strength podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Crocker. I am an experienced trainer and active life professional. I work with people who are struggling with nagging pain to get back to the activities they love without fear of re-injury. This podcast is here to educate and provide value to you on all things health, fitness, staying active, and personal development. Let's dive in. Okay, cool. All right, so today I have my guest, Kirsten. She is a certified active life professional, and she was actually one of my mentees while she was going through the program. So we met twice a month for a year, and so we got to know each other really well. And I'm excited to have her on to talk about her story, her background. She was previously a nurse and worked in healthcare before shifting into full-time fitness professional. So welcome to the pod.
Thank you. It's my first time. Very excited.
Yes. Very awesome. Okay, so first start by telling a little bit about your journey to figuring out that you wanted to start working in the fitness industry.
Yeah. So I was a nurse for 13 years. I feel so old, even like saying that out loud.
I guess I didn't realize it was that long, but that is a long time.
It was, yeah, it's that long. Like I could have a teenager that old by now. So I was a nurse for 13 years, and the majority of that time was in emergency nursing. And I kind of got into that because I was like, I like adrenaline. I like the drama of this.
The drama, constant drama.
Because it's exactly like TV. It's like,
just like Grey's Anatomy, right?
right. It's like just like that. No difference in real life. And so I got there and I was like, oh, this is different. Somebody should have warned me. I will say that it was very like challenging and in the technical aspect, and I really love that. Like it's a really intense form of practicing medicine, and like shout out to all those emergency nurses and doctors still doing it. Like they're amazing heroes. So that was me for a while. And I got stuck. I was stuck in this revolving cycle of let's just throw like small buckets of water on these big fires that are happening in people's lives. And I got irritated at that. And I was like, I don't like this. I want to figure out another way to help people. Right. And so that's how I decided, like, I think fitness, but like a broad way to practice fitness, like a whole person view, is what I want to do. And that feeling grew with me for years. Like it took me a long time to realize this is what I want to do. I just didn't know like how to do it.
Right. That makes sense. So at what point did you transition out of the emergency room into like a functional medicine practice? Because didn't you work there most recently?
I did. Yeah. So I was about 11 years into emergency medicine. And then 3 years ago, math doesn't add up. 3 years ago, I was in functional medicine. So that was a clinic setting and very much more aligned with my values of looking at the whole picture of someone, finding out the root cause of disease, and not just stopping there, but figuring out how can we be well in how can we be well in this? And so that was more in alignment with my values. And I really liked that area, but I still had this feeling of like, I want to do more. I want to do more than 15 to 20 minute clinic appointments with people.
Right. So talk a little bit more about like when you decided you were done with working in healthcare.
Mm-hmm. I take that back. I don't think it was like one light bulb moment. I think it was a buildup of a lot of small moments over many years.
Right.
That built up, and I finally decided like I've got to not be a nurse anymore. Um,
Yeah.
so it was a lot of layers to that.
That makes sense. I feel like huge decisions like that definitely take place over time, like small little bricks, and then you just get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm going to do something about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what made you decide to do the ALP course and not just like a regular personal training certification?
Mm-hmm. I wanted to do something that was very specific and detailed. I did not want to go back to college
Mm-hmm.
to a master's degree. So active life really appealed to me in that way, in that it was specific to treating the whole person, working with people with chronic pain, and not just like a quick fix mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I don't I don't love that idea. It has its place, but not for me. I want to be with someone for a process, like an extended period of time, and that model of how they practice fitness and movement that is in alignment with what I want to do. So that really appealed to me in that way.
Yeah, definitely. So, talk a little bit more about what your ALP journey was like, because it's for the listeners, it's a 13-month program. It's super long and it's not easy and it's very expensive. um, and there's also a lot of personal development involved in addition to the education that you're learning. So, talk a little bit more about the journey and like some of the things you learned education wise, but also personal development wise.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I first signed up, it took me a couple like months of thinking about it. By the time I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, I was like 90% sure I wanted to join. So I got in touch with Larry, who kind of brings on people at Active Life. And I remember texting with him. He was great at answering questions, helping me gain clarity on, is this exactly what I needed to do? And I remember telling him, I know that I can do, I know that I can do this. Like I can learn the technical skills, but I want help with like the business and marketing aspect of it. And thinking back on that statement, I just laughed to myself because I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, what was I thinking? Um, I'm glad I had like that confidence at the beginning to be like, yeah, I can totally do this. And then once I get in, I'm like, oh shit,
You're like, what have I done?
what have I done? Like, what have I done? Because it was way more than I expected. Like the value that was given to me was way more than I expected. I'll speak to like the education piece of it. Um, People assume like, oh, you're a nurse. It must have been easy for you to come from the medical field. And I'm like, no, not really. I might more know a little bit more like names of things than you do, but it's a whole nother way of like looking at the human body. So I really appreciate how in depth active life goes with all of the details of it. Um, so from an education standpoint, it's very thorough,
Mm-hmm.
starting with layers at the beginning and then kind of building on top of that. By the time you're graduated, there is so much that you know, and then you also realize there's a lot more that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a bad thing.
Right.
I feel like Active Life does a great job at giving you tools to critically think and also the support to help when you do have all the questions. So, long answer for the education part. Personal development, that is an ongoing process that I was not expecting. I wasn't expecting that to happen. That was like the sneaky thing that kind of like came in and then like it kind of like overtakes you when you're in it and you don't realize it's happening.
Uh,
Uh, so I think business and coaching and your personal life is all connected and you don't really realize it until you're in it.
mm-hmm.
So because when when you start to work on the one thing like active life, you realize this is big and important, and it just kind of like spills over into your personal life too before you realizing without you realizing it.
Yeah, it's definitely sneaky. And coaching is one of those professions that if you're not growing as a person, you're not getting better as a coach because what we do is so relational with people. And so that's such a huge part of it. But it's one of those things that people don't expect, like you said. There's something that you mentioned I want you to expand more on. You said the value was way more than you expected once you started it. Talk a little bit more about why.
Mm-hmm. The value is in the people that I met along the way, the coaches and the teachers and the mentors and the staff. I was not expecting that. And that is a huge part of my success up until now, and a huge area of challenge for me to see these other people, other coaches doing this. It's so it's so meaningful, and it's so inspiring to see that. And I think that's like a value that goes way beyond what I paid for this course. But it's not something that's displayed at the front of like, come to Active Life, you're gonna get all these great mentors and all this support. Like you would probably look at that and be like, yeah, right, everybody says that. They're the best.
Yeah.
But it's actually kind of true. It's kind of true that these people are really good at support. Like I know they're humans. We've all got our stuff, but I don't know, the value is just so so supportive, so meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to describe it. I'm trying to think of like way better, deeper words, but
No, I mean, that was perfect. I love what you said. And something that you said about like the reason I have been successful so far is because you've leaned into all the support that's available. Like not everybody does that. And the people who don't lean into all the support are the people who struggle. And the most successful people are all in with all the support, asking questions, not afraid to show up to the extra calls, like reach out to other people and connect. And that's such a huge part of it. So I 100% agree with you. And like, same goes for me when I went through the program too. It was different when I went through it, but showing up to everything, like creating relationships with other people who are also doing it, that's just so huge. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And then also you talked about like you realize that there's so much that you don't know when you started the program. And then but I wanted to say that like it's like that your whole coaching career almost like it's almost like the more you learn, the more you realize what you don't know. And the best coaches realize that too. Like this is a profession where you're always learning and evolving and like even me, I've been a trainer for 10 years and I'm like there's still so much I don't know.
Yeah.
So let's see. Talk about some of your biggest takeaways from like the 13-month journey.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's probably a lot, but
there's a lot. I'm trying to think of the highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah, biggest takeaways I think are I can't and I shouldn't do this alone. Like to talk to your point of like that support. You can like muscle your way through this by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But why? Like why
would you want to suffer?
Why would you want to suffer? Because 100% chance there's somebody out there, like tons of somebodies that are doing this exact same thing as you, have the exact same questions, struggling the same way, like growing and celebrating the same way as you. So why not connect with them? And that just takes intention on your part and like being open enough to be like, hey, I'm stuck and I need some help. Which for me, coming into this as a person who's like, I don't really want to ask for help. Like, I'll give you a list of like the top 5 things that I don't like saying in life. One of them is like, I need help. And so I think a big takeaway is being like, it's okay to ask for this help and to receive it back. Because people are so willing to help you and to want to give that. Um, another takeaway is uh just the knowledge that came up. There's so many great coaches like you with time under your belt, and then physical therapists on staff. I'm thinking of like Dr. Kaylin comes to mind. I'm thinking of like Coach Nicolette. She's got time under her belt. Like these people, they know what they're talking about, and they're not afraid to share it, which is huge. I remember asking questions and answers of like, well, what do you think about this? And I'm like, that's why I'm asking you, is because I don't know the answer. Don't make me think hard about this. Just tell me what I need to know. So
Yeah.
just please tell me. So the support that you get helps you like critically think, and then also like make sure that you're not just going off into the world with the wrong answer. So yeah, biggest takeaways, asking for help and then leaning into that support.
Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit more about what was beneficial about having a mentor to meet with throughout the process, aka me.
um I'm going to talk to you specifically about this because I feel like if I were to be like, having a mentor is great, it's just going to be awkward because you're like, sitting right here.
Yeah.
Having you as my mentor was so helpful because you helped me keep things simple. Like I like to overcomplicate things personally, which you well know. So I think that really they matched us well with our personalities of like, let me complicate things, you make them simple for me.
Yeah.
So that was really helpful. Having that consistency, like meeting every 2 weeks, was the right frequency for me to come up with questions, put them into practice in the real world, and then come back with more questions. So that cadence worked out really well. It also helped just with the accountability of like getting the stuff done and the assignments of knowing I'm checking in with you. I gotta have this done before I meet with you the next time.
Yeah.
So meeting in person was really great, and also having you to ask questions like in between our meetings of like, help, I don't know what to do. This is an emergency in my brain. Help me get out of it, actually. So I appreciated you being on call for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you like the things that you learned throughout like going through the program and like meeting with me? Talk about like how you put into practice like now you're on your own like in the wild, I guess. And so like do you still like think back to like me reminding you, okay, how can I make this simple? Or like maybe something you learned in a call, like do you reflect back and like use that now?
Oh, all the time. There's not like a week that goes by that I don't pull up the question of like, is this true with a client? Or is this true? And what are my options about this? Or how can I make this easy? I use your stuff all the time. And so it's been so helpful and like impactful for you to give those tools for me to pass on to clients.
That's awesome. So now I want to transition to talking a little bit more about like you're working with clients now. Talk about who do you like helping? Who's your ideal client? And why do you like helping people like that?
Okay. My ideal client is someone willing to start. I don't expect you as a client to come in and like know all the things.
Right.
And you wouldn't need me if that was the case. So I want you to be open-minded and willing to get started on making yourself a priority. That's going to look different for everybody, but you have to come to a point of like, I'm fed up with where I am. I need to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
How can we work together to solve these problems that I'm running up against? I want someone who's going to be, my ideal client is going to be honest. They're going to tell me like, hey, I didn't do what you told me to do this week at home. Uh, and so being honest in our communication is a really big deal for me. Um, and that's not just like a one-way street either. That's something that I'm actively trying to practice is you're going to be my ideal client by being honest. I'm going to try to be your ideal coach by equally communicating back to you in that honest way. So, and just someone who's like willing to learn. I think having a growth mindset is huge because it's super scary to step in here and like do hard things, like do this hard work. And so having that mindset of like, I'm going to fail, it's going to be okay, we're going to learn and like get through this together.
Yeah. There are a couple things that you mentioned that I want you to expand on. You mentioned like somebody who is willing to change and somebody who has a growth mindset. Why is that so important when it comes to like a coach-client relationship?
Mm-hmm. I don't want to be talking to a brick wall. Like if I tell you something, there's a reason. And if you're like, nope, not going to listen, I can't help you. So it's like, I guess it's that simple. Like it's, you have to be open and like willing to do some changing.
Yep. That's so huge. Like it is easy to say, oh yeah, I want to change. Like I want to start this new thing. But then you like actually have to make changes to see change. And that sounds like, oh, duh. But like a lot of people have trouble with that. like that's a thing, being resistant to actually changing. And so that is a huge part to seeing any type of success. Now talk a little bit more about like growth mindset. Like why is that important?
Oh, that's a huge piece of it. A growth mindset means I'm going to look at this opportunity in front of me as like a chance to grow, a chance to improve. Like I'm okay with you saying this is really hard and I hate this and it's uncomfortable. Cool. Let's acknowledge that. Let's just call it what it is. But then are we just going to stay there? Just staying there is probably what contributed to this happening. Like you can't just stay in it, then you don't grow. So let's acknowledge it. It's hard, it sucks, but then how do we come out of that? Like what small steps can we take to move the needle forward for you? And that's not going to be anything like huge and flashy and like hard. It is hard. It's not going to be anything that we can't accomplish together. So, and then we just keep layering that growth mindset. Like it's going to look different in different times of our life, different obstacles that come at us, but like the underlying principle is the same of like, how can we grow through this? What mindset of opportunity can we like look at this with?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And like seeing potential obstacles as like opportunities instead of it just being like, oh, like this is hard. Like this is not for me. Like people that have that attitude are not going to be successful.
Right.
Now, what would you say to the people who might say, okay, I need to get in shape before I hire a trainer?
First of all, we would talk about what does being in shape mean to you? Like why is that important to you? What does that look and feel like for you? And then we keep peeling back the layers because I really want to know why. Because most of the time, not most of the time, I'm generalizing here. It's not about being in shape. Like, sure, that's like great side effect to have, but like, what is it? What am I able to do with this in life? Or what feeling am I chasing? Or am I scared that if I'm not in shape, I'm going to be missing out on something or having to say no to things? So that's just me like wanting to dig into that a lot. But the answer is no, you don't have to get in shape. Like why would you like go hose off your car if you're going to drive through the car wash next? Like that's the whole point of going through the car wash is to get your car clean.
Yeah. I love that you answered with like, well, I would ask you why. And we would like peel back the layers a little bit. Cause I really think that's something that not a lot of people think about. Like they just think about surface level. Oh, I want to achieve XYZ goal. I want to look like this. I want to be this pant size. But a huge part of what they're missing in that is digging out, why is that even important to you? Like, why does that matter? How is that going to improve your life? And the reason why that's so important, which like you and I both know, is that when shit gets hard, you're going to need to remember why you're even doing this in the first place. Because the people that you and I work with are people who are struggling like through nagging aches or pains, or they're like not exercising now and they're trying to get back into it. And that is hard and it's not going to be comfortable. And so in those moments, you need to remember like, oh yeah, I'm doing this because I want to feel more confident or be around for my kids or be able to play on the playground with my kids and have energy. And that's so it's such an important piece to the journey, and a huge pro of working with somebody like an ALP, because they're going to ask you those questions. If you just go to a regular trainer, they're probably not going to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what it looks like to work with you. I know that you have a garage gym, so you have like your little own personal training studio, but talk about, what does the session look like? Talk about the education piece of what you do with clients too, because that's also different than a normal trainer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a session, there's a lot that goes into the sessions. By the time you start with me on our first session, there's a lot that I know about you already, because at the beginning, there's a lot of questions I want to find out from you, to really dig in and find out, like, are we the right fit and all that. So by the time you get to me in our first one, we're like, okay, let's do this. A typical session will start with just checking in, like a conversation like this, like, how are you feeling this week? What are you doing? Talking about your lifestyle factors. And a lot of times this is where I'll kind of get the feeling of how does this client look overall? What are they presenting like they need today? So sometimes we'll spend more time talking about, hey, I had a really stressful day at work, or there's really nothing significant going on in life. Let's get right into the work today. So that's what I like to do, is kind of gauge that with clients. And then we kind of talk about what are some low-hanging fruits we can work on for you for this week or until we meet again the next session. So kind of setting up those action steps of, you want to drink more water? Okay, great. What does that actually look like every day for you? And how are you going to remember? We'll stop and I'll be like, are you going to put this into your phone? Do you need to write a sticky note? So doing things to help them to the next session. And then we get into work. So obviously, start with a warm up, and then we do their custom program sessions. And this is going to be based on the testing that we do at the beginning sessions, finding out how strong they are in different planes of movement, what movements they do really well, what movements we need to work on a little bit better. So all of that combined creates the program that the client will be doing for that day. So then we run through it. We definitely stop along the way if something doesn't look right for them, if it doesn't feel right. A lot of times the client will be like, this doesn't feel good. I'm like, okay, how do you fix it? What are you going to do about it? Let them kind of come up with a solution, and then I'll step in when I need to. And then we wrap up. A lot of times we'll wrap up with breathing, and this is really simple, but it's really impactful, because clients carry this over into their everyday life of just learning how to breathe.
Yeah.
All that in an hour. It's a lot.
Yeah. Do you give your clients homework to do outside of your sessions?
It depends. It depends on if they will be consistent with it. The majority of them do have homework, and they do get it done, and they do notice how they feel, which is most of the time positive.
talk a little bit about some of the clients that you've helped so far, like maybe a little bit of like client successes or like some highlights, just so people get an idea of the impact that you're making on your clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a client. Do you want me to give like names for people?
No, you don't have to give names.
Okay. So I have a client and who came in for some back pain. And this happened. She said, I get in a cycle where I try to exercise. I can't, or I don't know what to do. I end up hurting myself and then I stop. Familiar cycle, uh, confusion. We don't know what to do. We end up giving up. So we've been together like 20 sessions or so. And I asked her this week, like, are you having pain? How's that going? She's like, no. I was like, cool. That's amazing. That's amazing. Why? What's going on? She's like, I think it's because you're watching me. Like, you're looking at me, watching how I'm moving and like interrupting those patterns of like improper movement. So I don't get to experience that pain in the first place. So that's super cool to me to be able to see that, like almost like the gold standard of like in-person right away feedback is paying off for her.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are some things that showed up in her like testing and assessing like process? Was there anything that stood out to you as to like why she might be dealing with this pain in the first place?
Mm-hmm. So imbalances between right and left leg strength, and then an improper hinge pattern. So hinge meaning just bending over to grab something off the floor, not using the correct muscles the right way. So once we identified that, then we started at like the basement level of how can we hinge correctly with the right mechanics, and then build up from there in our range of motion with it, and also the load that we add.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So talk a little bit more about the right side versus left side strength and balance. This is something that I see a lot as well with clients. So talk about like, why does that usually result in some discomfort or pain?
Mm-hmm. I think all of us, not I think, I'm pretty sure all of us have imbalances between the right and left side, and sometimes that can get out of hand. And so, left side is working harder than the right side and can get fatigued, like suboptimal movement patterns on one side versus the other, meaning like I need to be able to bend over, but I'm doing this not in a way that's healthy for me.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can, first of all, assess and like crack that open and be like, look at this, look at what's happening here. Okay, great. Now we know to target the left side a little bit more. We're going to build that up. And then let's retest this in a couple of weeks or whatever our cycle is. Okay, great. Now you're looking equal. Cool. Now we can do whatever we want. What's next?
Mm-hmm. How long did it take to bring up her weaker side strength?
Yeah, 20 sessions. I'm trying to think divided. So like 10 weeks, 10 to 12 weeks.
Okay. And now is she even, or are you still working on it?
Yep, she's even. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Cool. Now talk a little bit more about the hinge pattern, and that she was doing, or she didn't have a great like movement pattern there. Did her hinge look really squatty, or like what was the situation there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, her hinge looked more like a squat. And once she knew that and knew what it felt like, the light bulb moment happened pretty quickly into our training where she would self-correct. And to me, I was like, I am done. If I don't accomplish anything else with you, just the fact that like you know what to look for and can call it out and say it was huge. Like that was a big win for us.
Yeah.
Because when she knew that this feels like a squat, and now, but instead I need to be hinging. She knew how to like self-correct and keep going with that.
Yeah, that's so huge. That's something that I've seen before too, is like people just not even using the right muscles to hinge. So like no wonder we're out of balance and experiencing discomfort, is because we're not doing any hinging at all, because it's just piling on the squatting volume.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit more about breathing and breath work, because that's something that you touched on, that you do that at the end of every session, and that's like really impactful for people. Talk a little bit about why that matters and why that's a tool that you use with your clients.
Mm-hmm. It matters because you literally do it every day, all the time.
Yeah.
So if you don't know something, you don't notice something until like you're looking for it, as basic as that sounds. So you can get into the habit of suboptimal breathing patterns, and that affects you every day of your life, and you just carry that around. You know that feeling when you get to be more stressed. You know how that breathing pattern feels and looks like for you. So when we can bring awareness to that and shine light and say, look at what's happening, how can we like tap into this and use it for our benefit, it becomes a big deal. It's not hard. It just requires being intentional with it. So exercise is stress. Like your body just perceives it as stress. It's not a bad or a good thing. But after we do exercise, we need to tell our nervous system, like, it's okay to come down from that and to rest and relax. So we spend time at the end just laying on the ground, breathing, just nasal breathing, to tell our body, like, soak in all this goodness we just did, and you're going to be fine, leaving and going out into the world. I've had clients say, I do breathing at night now. Like, it's almost like a snowball effect where they do it in exercise and then they're like, yeah, I'm starting to do this at night. Cool. That's awesome. Great way to wind down for the day. Okay. Now they're doing it in the morning, like before they get out of bed and like start packing their phones and stuff. They're like, I sit on the edge of my bed and I do this. That's amazing. Okay. Now we're doing it before we get into like a stressful work meeting, or they'll shut the door of their office and be like, I'm taking a couple deep breaths. So it's really cool to carry over that I've noticed for people.
Yeah, that's awesome. It really is like a snowball effect. And a lot of times people are skeptical of like, oh, breathing, like it's not going to make a difference. And then like once you do it, they're like, wow, okay, that does actually make a difference, and like calm down our nervous system. And most people live pretty stressful lives. And that is such a simple tool in the toolbox that you can pull out literally at any time, that can just take like a few seconds, and it can make such a huge difference. And then I love doing the breathing before trying to go to sleep too, because I notice a huge difference in my sleep quality when I do some calm down breathing before I'm trying to go to sleep. So it is one of those things that makes a huge difference. So if you're listening to this, do yourself a favor and do some nasal breathing and make sure your rib cage is expanding.
Yes.
All right. So next up, I want you to talk a little bit about the person out there who might be contemplating a career change. We'll use fitness as an example. Like, they want to get into the fitness industry. They're not happy with like their current job. It'll be like a new field for them, but they're scared to try something new and scared to invest in themselves. Like, what would you say to that person?
Why not bet on yourself? Like, just why would you not? Because you're going to be the hardest worker if you take that investment and like pour it into yourself. I don't think that there's ever going to be a right time for you to make a change. You can think about it and try to line everything up with yourself and your family. But there's always going to be a reason why you're like, this isn't the right time. So you just have to come to a point where you're like, I I can't stay doing what I'm doing any longer. I have to make a change. And that's going to look different for everybody. Some people
Mhm.
are like overthinkers and it takes a long time. Other people are like, I'm just going to jump off this cliff and see what happens.
Mhm.
Um, I get it that there's fear and uncertainty. That's totally normal to feel like that, but you have support and you can't, it's it's such a great system. I'm specifically at Active Life. It's such a great support system that you can take the leap and you will be supported the entire way. And there's nobody out there that hasn't felt that same fear as you. So invest in yourself. It's worth it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell the people where to find you, like on Instagram, your website, all the things that they resonate with you and maybe want to work with you. How can the people find you?
People, I love this. Instagram is Kirsten Wredberg Fitness. And I hope you can put this into do you have show notes?
Yeah, I'll put show notes. Yeah.
Yeah, last name is a little bit hard to spell, so it's Kirsten Wredberg Fitness. And then same on the website. My website is actually live.
Yay.
Super excited about that. It's live, it's done, it's not perfect. That's all that matters. So it's KirstenWredbergFitness.com. And that's my two social places right now.
Awesome. Yep. And I'll put it in the show notes for the people as well. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ashley.